If you're like me, 30 years ago when I was about to start my auditing class, I was not excited about it. In fact, I'd heard horrific stories about how boring auditing was. And pretty much when I got done with that class, I really didn't know any more about auditing than when I had started that class. It wasn't until I got out into the CPA world and started doing auditing. But one thing you have going for you is I'm going to bring some of those stories, some of those learnings into the classroom, including doing a case that I've created that will hopefully help you become a better auditor, and you'll feel better coming out of this auditing class than I did 30 some years ago. But let's start right out with an overview of external auditing and the financial statement audit. So what is an audit? I mean, if we looked it up in the Webster's dictionary, it has a noun portion, which is an official inspection of an individual or organization's accounts, typically by an independent body. From our perspective, that accounts means our financial statements, and that official inspection is following all the audit procedures that we're going to learn over the next several weeks to be able to validate those accounts. Now, it's important to note there that it said independent body. And the reason why you almost always need an independent body is you don't want somebody who's biased, because you want an objective person going in and looking at those accounts, because the people who are relying on you are outside stockholders and investors. They want to know that those accounts are properly valued. So if we look at the verb portion of the definition, it's to actually conduct that official examination of an individual's and organization's accounts, and that's what we're going to be learning over the next several weeks, is how to conduct that. Therefore, to do the verb or to conduct that audit, you should be an independent body. So to be an independent body, you should be usually external, someone from outside the company, not part of the regular daily process of activities, so that when you go look at them, you're not invested in them. You have an objective view. You didn't perform that work. You're just reviewing that work with an educated understanding of what should be happening. So in 1934, the Securities and Exchange Commission realized that the people weren't getting enough information, so they made it mandatory that publicly traded companies needed to file reports to keep the public informed, to keep it fair for everybody that was investing. Of course, if management was doing their own reports and no one looking at them, they might sway those reports in ways that could mislead the public also, or give them opportunities. So the SEC also established audit requirements for those financial statements being reported, so that there was an external financial review of those to ensure the integrity of those documents. So who best to do that? Well, how about our external auditors? What are the two major focuses of a financial statement audit? Well, one is the reliability of those financial statements, but just as important is the internal control effectiveness. So those are really the two outcomes of what we do when we do our audits. That reliable financial statement, and we know that the processes internally are working correctly so that they produce accurate financial statements. So who are these external auditors of financial statements? Well, according to Audit Analytics and posted by Mercedes Erickson on July 10th of 2019, the top 10 auditing firms that work on publicly traded companies internationally are, well, and you probably have seen a commercial or advertisement for many of these firms: Ernst & Young or EY, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, KPMG. In fact, these four are also known as the Big Four. They also make up 47% of the public company audits that are performed out there. Almost half. Now, there used to be a Big Five, and that was Arthur Andersen, but because of the Enron scandal, they wound up getting dissolved. So it's very important that we understand and perform proper audits of these financial statements, or we could wind up like Arthur Andersen. Of course, I'm pretty old. I actually remember when there was a Big Eight, when Arthur Young combined with Ernst & Winnie to become EY, when Price Waterhouse combined with Coopers & Lybrand to become PwC, when Deloitte Haskins & Sells combined with Touche Ross to become Deloitte, when Peat, Marwick & Mitchell combined with an European company to become KPMG. And I already mentioned Arthur Andersen up there, but I'm sure that bores you and doesn't matter anymore. So let's go over the rest of those 10. BDO USA, Grant Thornton, Markham, RSM, Malone Bailey, and Crowe. Those are your top 10 that perform the majority of audits internationally for publicly traded companies. Now, who are some of the top regional Rochester accounting firms? Now, these firms come to Brockport. They do interviews. They're at Arnett, so you should be familiar with who they are. And they include Bonadeo and Company, the biggest one in Rochester. There's also Insero and Company. In fact, I'm so old that I remember when Bonadeo and Insero were combined, and then eventually they split up and had their own firms. There's also Davy Kaplan, Freed Maxick CPAs, which actually started in Buffalo and is now in Rochester. So they have operations in Buffalo, but then again, so does Bonadeo. Mengel, Metzger and Barr and Company, EFPR, DeJoy, Knopf and Blood, Thaney and Company, BDR, or Bond, it's another short way to refer to them, TYS, Young and Company, David Young, who is in on the advisory board of Brockport, Kaspersky, Yeager and Treviso, Hevron and Company, Bailey Carr, RDG Plus Partners, Flaherty, Sardone, Roberts Accounting, he usually hires quite a few interns for tax season. Tet, Welker, Conlin, Gray, BSSC, McDonald, NACA. Now, some of the Buffalo Niagara accounting firms also come to Brockport's Arnett, and they include Lumsden and McCormick. That's a big firm. They've hired people from SUNY Brockport recently. You got Brock, you got Tronconi, and Drescher Malecki. So I hope that gives you a list of firms that you can look at and keep your eyes open for. Now, some of the smaller firms might just do taxes. They won't do audits. But the larger firms, and most of these firms, do some sort of audit or review work, and we'll learn all about that over the next several weeks also. So what is the overall process of a financial statement audit? Well, the first step is client acceptance. We actually check to make sure that that client that we're going to work with is somebody that we do want to work with. You know, there's no conflicts of interest or problems with that client that we should be leery of and not want to do work with. We'll also do that with our current clients, and that's the continuance portion of it. Do we want to keep those clients? We'll also perform a risk assessment. What that is we're just assessing business risks and operational risks. We're looking at the environment saying, okay, are there things that we should be concerned about when we get into this audit? You know, a COVID-19 is an example of a risk. It's a business risk out there that might be affecting clients. You want to be aware of how that's affecting the client you're about to audit. We're going to test and gather evidence about their internal controls to make sure that they're solid and tight so that we can rely on the financial statements. And then we're going to go test and gather evidence about those accounts and disclosures and assertions related to the financial statements that that client has, so that when we get done, we can complete our audit and issue an audit report that gives our opinion on those financial statements and internal controls to say whether we feel they're following proper procedures or not, and that those numbers can be relied on by outside parties. We're also going to do a review of ourselves. We're going to make sure that the quality of the work that we put together was sufficient and met the standards. We're going to look at our personnel. Did we have the right personnel on that audit? Did they have the knowledge? Did they learn well through that audit? So we're going to do a little quality review on ourselves. Now, what does it take to be a good auditor? Well, first off, it's a basic understanding of transactions and business functions, the ability to read that financial statement and understand debits and credits. You also need to understand the business operations, counting transactions, internal controls, all those things you've been learning in all the lower level accounting classes That's why this is a 400 level class, because hopefully you've seen most of those things and you can apply them to audit. We also get understanding from the experiences we have, not only in the accounting world, but maybe any business experience we have, or even the summer job that we did. We might have gained some experiences from that that help us become good auditors. Hopefully our education and our class here will help you learn more about auditing. And when you're studying for certifications like the CPA, the Certified Public Accountant, or the CMA, Certified Management Accountant, or even the CIA, Certified Internal Auditor, you'll gain some knowledge of processes and transactions that will help you become a good auditor. You need to be able to work as a good team member because most audits are performed in teams. And so you need to be a dependable audit team member, keeping up your end of the bargain on the audit, doing your work, making it legible so people can read it, following the protocol and procedures that your firm has laid out for audits. You need to have good communication skills, whether it's your ability to talk to the client personnel or interview the client for information, or your ability to document and evidence and keep good notes on those audit tests that you've performed. You need to be adaptable because each client is going to have different information systems. They could have big ERP systems, or they could have a system as simple as QuickBooks, or they might have no systems. They may use a lot of Excel spreadsheets. They could have procedures. They could have extensive procedures and written procedures. They may not have any procedures. Everything is done based on how things were done in the past, and people just perform these functions. You're also going to deal with different talent levels. People who have had high level of education and certifications to people who are just starting their job and just getting out into the workforce. So you need to be able to adapt to all those different skill levels. You need to be a critical thinker, which means you've got to problem solve. If there's something that comes up on the audit, you've got to be able to figure out a way to solve that and bring a solution to your audit team members, your audit manager, or even the client sometimes. So let's get you thinking like an auditor. So you look at a financial statement and you see the following balance. Inventory, $2.5 million. Now put your auditor hat on. What questions would you have to verify this inventory number of $2.5 million? I'll give you a second. Now, hopefully, you've had some ideas floating in your head. Let's see how you did. Did you worry about valuation method? Like, how are they valuing that? Is it LIFO method, FIFO method, standard costing method? Were you worried that it even existed? Do they do physical counts? Did they do cycle counting to make sure that inventory is all there? How about the internal controls around that? Who purchases that inventory? Are there proper controls so they don't purchase more inventory than they should have? How about the safety of that? Are there internal controls within the warehouse to protect that inventory? How about any obsolete inventory in that balance? Is there old big balances of inventory that they're never going to be able to sell? So why is it considered sellable inventory right now? So these are all areas that as an auditor, when you see a number like that and an account like that, you'll start to think that way. You get the idea? So that's the mindset you're going to need as an auditor. So I hope this overview of external auditing and financial statement audits has been helpful. We're going to dive into the meat and potatoes of auditing soon. And we're going to start out with a lot of what I'll call the boring stuff, where we've got to understand the philosophy behind audit and understand the key terminology. And then as we get into it more and more, later on in the semester, we're going to actually do some of these tests on the case study that I've got. I hope you're set up and ready for a fun semester in auditing. I know those two words are considered an oxymoron, fun and auditing, but I hope by the end of it, you'll feel that way. Thanks for listening to this lecture, and I hope you have a great day.